Good evening, everybody. We're back. This is Motor City Madmouth. This is the South Florida Tribune podcast. I'm Renzy. Welcome back to the big show, Christmas trees and all.
Thanks, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here. Time to celebrate the season, right?
Absolutely. And Mr. F.A.O. Schwartz, Joe Littman.
Hi, everybody. Oh, what happened just Hey, everyone.
The guy that likes to mess around with all these virtual backgrounds because some dummy like me doesn't know how to do them. So let you guys light this bad boy up in a very colorful way. Well, you know what? It's no secret. Okay. I've been out of action for a little while. My mother passed away a few weeks ago, but show goes on. She used to promote him up in heaven. She's listening. And I'm sure she'll be laughing by the end of this broadcast. If she isn't laughing, then I don't know what that will be. I know she will. Well, meanwhile, outside of fantasy football, I'm glad to have you guys back on for the first broadcast here. And we're gonna disappoint her or anybody because on my Facebook thing, am I going to show a little emotion? Then some? Yeah. Am I going to make it somber? No. Can't totally change everything about me, right?
Can't do it.
Don't plan on it. Okay. At any rate, this is a show I've been looking forward to for a long time. How long have I been looking forward to it? Probably for 35 or 40 years, long before I knew you guys, and then some.
That's a long way to go without doing a show with something you like.
Oh, I'm going to listen to it already. This is just a sign of what you're in for, folks. We got a lot of great entertainment. The theme of this broadcast is called Johnny Lightning. If you want to know a little bit about Johnny Lightning before I get to my two co-hosts, okay, it was introduced in 1969, 51 years ago. Johnny Lightning is a train set where they had 31 models. They had tracks topper in 1970, okay, and Johnny Lightning sponsored Pernelli Jones and Al Unser. So I'll get to my story a little bit of time, but I want you guys to talk about your favorite toy stories a little bit, and I'm going to get into an experience that I am enjoying opening up to. Now, just to preference everybody and set the stage for this, on my Facebook page, Scott Morganroth on Facebook, I had an opportunity to post 3 photos of where I used to live back in Southfield, Michigan off of Willowwick Drive. Why would I go ahead and post those photos way back when? Well, number one, it wasn't, it was the only wooden garage out there, but there was an awful lot that would ensue on my birthday many, many years ago. Believe that it's a teaser. And we're going to lead off with Ron Renzy. Go ahead, Ron, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. Good to be here tonight. This is hopefully will be a light show going down memory lanes of folks of a certain age. When I'm thinking of toys in my youth going way back, I can think of two things, sometimes separately, sometimes together. That would be Lego and Hot Wheels. What I used to do is I would build with Lego, but it wasn't the sets, a lot of the sets they have today, you can build the house or the Star Wars. It would just be a box of bricks and kind of a flat plastic piece you could build things on. So I would build like a little house or, maybe I'd build a car, and it was kind of good to create the imagination of building Lego. So what I would do, and then sometimes I mix them with Hot Wheels. And I used to collect Hot Wheels all the time. My parents would get them for me, and I actually still have some today. So I was actually looking at my desk today. This is not an old one, but on my desk, believe it or not, is a Hot Wheels. It actually was on my desk under the computer, just kind of hanging out here. And sometimes what I would do, we had a hall with a sunken living room of all things. And I would build like a little town, and I would have the little like buildings and houses and kind of create things. And that was like one of the biggest memories. A couple other things is talk about modeling, like model boats and model cars. I was big into that. Kind of started with, if you remember the snap togethers, they would just kind of snap together for the elementary, and then you get the glue. Then if you were up to it, you get the paint, which didn't know would come out well, but I tried. So that was kind of the inside toys. Also outside, of course, the bike. Everyone had a bike and rode around the neighborhood, which we did as well. And which you could do because I grew up here in South Florida, so you could pretty bike all year round. When I was even smaller, I had a big wheel. If you guys remember what the big wheel was, going around, basically would go like, on the sidewalk between houses because you couldn't really go far in a big wheel. So that's kind of my introduction. So I guess I still play with toys. Hey, why not?
So what we've done with Ron Renzy, folks, is we've taken a guy with a little bit of a big wheel, right? And then we have a little wheel like that little Matchbox that you have. And now we've graduated to this guy here who will be promoting IMSA, Sebring pretty soon. And we're going to be talking about some fast cars. We'll throw a little teaser out there for you. On next week's edition of the Sports Exchange, we plan to have Ken Breslauer on the broadcast, and he's a track historian for Sebring. So Ron's going to go from the big wheel to the Matchbox car. So let me ask you, Ron, okay, did you ever have a red wagon many years ago?
Yes, I did. I did have a red wagon. I had one, was a little bit different. I had one, it was a red wagon. I think it was wood, and it had sides that would like stick in and you could take them out. They look like panels, maybe. That was my red wagon. Yes.
So the next question I have is, were you ever a paper boy growing up?
Actually, was not a paper boy. Believe it or not, I was not a paper boy. I know. I know you were. So I'm not a member of the Paperboy Club, which I'm sure I'm going to hear some Paperboy stories tonight.
Well, you probably might a little bit, because that same Paperboy story, even though it's not the core of this broadcast, occurred at the same address out in Southfield, Michigan. I did a lot of stuff as a kid back then, and having a Paperboy, and then having a red wagon, by the way, a metal one, by the way. And then when we talk about the snow, I used to have my young cousin help me deliver newspapers in the middle of the winter. And I know you South Floridians wouldn't know anything about the middle of the winter with lots of snow and how cold it really is, because you enjoyed the good life. But, we're in a wheelie mood tonight, okay? There's there a pun intended? Oh, yeah. Okay, so just curious. Okay. All right, Mr. Littman, your turn.
Okay. Well, this whole topic, I went down memory lane. I didn't remember a lot of the toys that I had, and then I went online and searched today for toys of the 70s, and I found a whole bunch of toys that immediately brought back a rush of memories, and I didn't even remember until I saw them, except for one. My very first memory of playing with a toy is when I was 2 years old, and it was that thing right there, a brown Matchbox car, and I have a snapshot memory of being on the floor of the kitchen playing with that car. And that's not just my first memory playing with a toy. That's my very first memory ever. And some of my other favorite toys, actually some of the toys I had, I inherited. They were hand-me-downs from my older brother, who's 9 years older than me. This one was a favorite. This was a Jaguar E-Type. That the controllers, that big thing on the left, and it actually was held like with a wire, so you had to like follow it around. That was a fun toy. I remember as a kid, I always wanted remote control cars, and every time I would get one, they would last for like a week before they wouldn't work anymore, and then I wouldn't be able to play with them anymore. One of my favorite toys of all time, and there's a little story that goes with this one. I had to turn it sideways because you wouldn't see the whole thing. It's kind of like one of those like transformer things, but it was built of like die-cast metal, and it separated into several different pieces, different like vehicles, and then you could assemble it all together. I remember going with my mom shopping at Burdine's department store years ago. I was probably about 10, 11 years old, and I saw this thing. I wanted it, but it was expensive. I mean, at the time it was like $60-something, and my mom wasn't going to get it for me because it was, kind of expensive. But we wound up going home with it, and that was probably one of my favorite toys that I ever got as a kid. Let's see. I spent much time on the backyard of my house digging in the mud with these suckers. The Tonka metal dump truck and bulldozer, and I don't know if they have one there, but the what do you call it? The thing that grabbed the dirt and the crane. That was favorite. This sucker, I had that, and then this, where those cars were like where you put that plastic thing in it, and like went, and the wheels spun on it, and then you just put it down and it would take off. I didn't even remember those until I was looking through pictures today, and I had that exact one and that one. I vividly remember it now. Wouldn't have remembered it before, but now I do. And oh, that's a bad picture of that one. That is a Shogun Warrior, and I'm turning it sideways so you can see it better. But I remember that exact one. It had little things on the hand with like little missiles that on its shoulder, and you put it in there and you press the little button and shoot these little missiles. I had a friend on my block growing up that like I got that one for Christmas, like just that one or Hanukkah, and he would get like every single one of the set. There was like 10 of them. Like he would get every single one of them, and like I would get one. Same thing with the Star Wars stuff. I got X-Wing Fighter, loved that X-Wing Fighter. Played with it everywhere. Played it in the pool. Most of my toys wound up in the pool eventually. That was probably the only Star Wars toy I had. My friend Dave, like he had like the Imperial Walkers. He had the Millennium Falcon. Like anything you could possibly buy, he had like the entire set of them. Here's another one that I remember from a kid, Evel Knievel thing that you like wind up and let it go. And then of course, who doesn't remember cap guns? You put the little caps in there and then make the little sound effect noises. This was another favorite one when I was a kid. This is an aircraft carrier. It had little foam planes, and they had like a rubber band thing. And you would like crank it back, and then you hit the switch, and then things would fly off the flight deck. That was another favorite of mine. And then my Battlestar Galactica toys would open up and shoot little red missiles out. So, and then of course, who can forget my first game system, Atari 2600. Gaming has come a long way since those days. So those are just a few of my favorite. Oh, wait, one last one. Not really a favorite, but just things you wouldn't see anywhere these days. Metal lawn darts. They just don't make toys the way they used to. Yeah. So those are a few of the ones that I remember. I forgot the ColecoVision. The electronic football.
Oh yeah, no, you got to have that one on there. All
yes. Right. So yeah, those are a few of my favorites from back in the day.
Great job, Joe. Great.
Well, now we need to break down some of these toys, Mr. Littman. Okay, we really need to do it. I got to tell you, I liked Evel Knievel. You know, whether he made attempts and he broke sticks and stones, may break a lot of bones, but names won't ever hurt you. Forget about the names. This guy broke a lot of bones as a daredevil. Oh, yeah. He did. I didn't care whether or not he went over the Snake River Canyon or wherever he ended up going. You know, Evel Knievel to me was just an unbelievable guy to follow, wasn't he?
Amazing.
He definitely was. He definitely.
Oh yeah, because you would have those big events on TV. It would be like, you know, the Evel Knievel show, and he's going to jump something, and
the Grand Canyon,
right? And they would show whatever happened too. You know,
you see that every once in a while. Now I saw somebody in Vegas do a motorcycle jump. It's kind of been about a year or within the last year, and he jumped over a whole bunch of. No, actually, I think he jumped over like one of the fountains, like at the Bellagio or something like that.
I know he used to do stuff over Caesar's Palace for a while too, didn't he? He used to do those. I know. You know, again, I'm not going to get into an Evel Knievel clinic, but when you brought up Evel Knievel, I can remember many times with my grandpa Sidney on my mom's side.
I had a grandma Sidney on my mom's side too.
Oh, did you? Well, I've had Sidneys all over the place for crying out loud.
Actually, my first child is named after him.
Oh, cool. Really? All right, so we have a Sidney reunion. I had a Sidney Morganroth who was on my dad's side. I had a step-grandfather named Sidney Jacobs on my dad's side, and Sidney Kaplan on my mom's side. So we have at least three of them.
You have a bunch
Sidneys everywhere.
Yeah, Sidneys are everywhere, boy. I'll tell you. But see, what was interesting about Grandpa Sidney Kaplan was he had a bunch of girls. So when I came around, he was in heaven on it. He had a grandson. Holy Toledo, you know. Hey, I got a grandson to take around. And there was a nightclub. Now we're really getting back some Detroit memories back there called Sidney Hill, which was the equivalent to LA Fitness back in the Detroit area. So for all you Detroiters that are listening to this broadcast, Sidney Hill, once upon a time, way back when, okay?
Wow.
But I remember him and I used to talk about Evel Knievel and all the daredevil stunts, whether it was over Caesar's Palace, Snake River Canyon, blah, 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 blah. But then you bring up cap guns. I hate to bring this up in the year 2020 because holy moly, can you imagine what social media would have been like with cap guns scaring the daylights out of somebody? Oh,
you know what? I have to say, though, cap guns was probably the least, like, it was the most innocuous thing that we did. I think I told you on a previous show that me and my friends, as we got a little bit older and graduated from the cap gun phase, would go on the golf course that was near our house, bundle up in heavy clothing and shoot each other with BB guns, and then take bottle rockets, those screaming bottle rockets that like whistled, and shoot those at each other. So
well,
Interesting stuff.
You don't want me to get into a BB gun story tonight, do you? Oh, you know what? I'm going to do it anyways. I don't even care. What the heck? You know, even though it's not the main event, we'll just set the BB gun with the appetizer, okay? That's what we'll do. Once upon a time, I had a BB/Pelican gun, okay? And, you know, don't tell me in the person or two that never took a day off from school, although my wife Candy never did because her family was filled with educators. Oh, my God, I'm losing it twice in one broadcast. So I told you folks should see a little bit of emotion, but not the crying stuff. But anyways, we took a day off from school, and this one guy, okay, you know, we took the day off from school, and I hate to bring up a certain way, but he was one of those types of people that like to stereotype a little bit and discriminate. And when I got winded, he was one of those kinds of people, and he was a real piece of work. I'll never forget the time, and, you know, with all due respect, he was on top of a roof at one of my good friend's house, and because I knew the type of person he was, instead of shoot him with a pellet, with a BB gun on top of the roof, I clocked him with a pellet, and boy, I'll tell you, he was wide open.
Whoa. That must have hurt.
Guys, you know, it was a story that I wish I would have been able to utilize on YouTube and all these videos, because if you would have heard the reaction of the ouch, oh my goodness. So,
I had a similar story to that. I got shot.
Sure.
In one of my escapades, I got shot, and then I pulled a Dirty Harry on the guy that shot me, or the kid. Guy, we were probably 10 years old, 11 years old at the time.
You did?
Oh. Yeah, well, he had a much stronger gun than I did. I had one of those little spring action ones. He had a CO2. CO2, you know, those were pretty strong. He shot me almost like point blank range with the one with CO2. So I grabbed it from him, and as he was running away flailing, I shot him in the back.
Let me tell you, back in the day, I didn't realize how much damage a pellet gun can do. But boy, I'll tell you, if you have a wide open target, you felt it, and I think it went through his jeans. But there was,
I would think so. Yeah, sure. Like the one in me, like I still have a scar from it, like embedded inside of me.
Well, I mean, you think it's pretty strong stuff, and the you know, I know people realize. I was looking at the picture of the lawn darts you put up, and I think it said something like outdoor fun for the whole family. So you're throwing pointy metal objects, and that's fun for the whole family. There you go. That outdoor game for the whole family. It's a missile game. I mean, it says it's a missile game. Who came up with that? Sure, let's pelt pointy metal objects at each other. Why not?
Well, this guy was.
It was back in the day when like, you probably see these things on social media. Like, you know, back then we drank water out of hoses. We didn't drink bottled water. You know, like it was a totally different era then. I mean, I think I mentioned this in one of the other shows that we had about like childhood. Right. That like in my neighborhood, it was a construction zone. Like our house was one of the first houses built. Like my playground was like construction sites where houses were being built, and we would like use the empty houses or the empty lots, dig holes, like build fires and like melt things.
That's kind of funny.
It was a completely. I mean, I would be horrified if any of my children did any of the stuff that I did when I was a kid.
Well, I mean, absolutely not. Go to broadcast of that stuff, man. But I'll tell you, to this day, considering the type of person he was, Okay, he got off easy with a pellet gun, even though he was an easy target, let me tell you. Even though that wasn't the cornerstone of this broadcast, it's always good to bring in a memory like that, especially knowing when you reflect back on a situation where there is a lot of discrimination going on. You know, nowadays you'd get arrested for having a squirt gun in front of you, the way this society is paranoid.
Well, the question is, whatever happened to that guy? Do you know?
You know, I do know what happened to him. A couple of years ago, I reconnected with a friend of mine. Let me preface the story a little now that we're going in this direction, okay? And I don't mind doing it because I think we're going to have fun with the other one. But let's talk about it since we're in an era that we can afford to do it. Growing up as a kid, I grew up in a predominantly Jewish area. Okay, I did. Southfield, Michigan at that time was a predominantly Jewish area. I ended up moving to a suburb called Highland, Michigan, which at that time was known for horses, more of a country area. There were very few Jewish people, which I am Jewish, folks, okay? So I've had to deal with a lot of the backlash of being a non-Jewish area in a very non-Jewish area. That was not an easy situation. I ended up moving during the middle of a semester. At least I wish I could have waited at least after the school year, but it didn't quite work out that way. Well, once a guy came to my house one time and he saw the Jewish star in my house, and we had a Nazi guy, and you know where that's going. I don't have to go deeper into that. But that's where there became a little tension. Now, I had another guy who I did reconnect on Facebook, and I've seen him a couple of times since, that lives in that area. And he says, I really wish I would have done more to get this guy off your back because what he did was wrong. Well, the guy ended up becoming a bum with a bunch of kids and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, this other guy's been apologizing. I wish I would have done things better. And at that time, we were into hunting, you know, and things like that. I initially bought a 12-gauge gun, you know, to try to for skeet shooting and things like that. And then I didn't want it around, so I ended up buying the pellet gun. But then things got even more hostile with this guy. And then ultimately, you know, all three of these guys ended up going away. And then I reconnected with one. So to tell you that this guy didn't deserve what he ended up getting, well, he did. But, you know, again, we'll talk about the discrimination factor that goes on not only back in the 80s and the 70s, but what it is even now. It's just ridiculously high. And that's where the pellet gun comes into play. I don't mind opening up about that because no matter where you are, discrimination, there's no place for it. You didn't have social media back then, and, you know, you had snail mail, but it was a different story. But nevertheless, it's one of those kind of things where, you know, you're caught with a pellet gun anywhere, you can be arrested for this stuff. The things that we were many years ago was nothing compared to what this society has turned out to be.
True.
Well, that gives you a little bit of background information on that. Nevertheless, and I'm glad to this day that the one guy I reconnected with, we remain very good friends, and I do see him from time to time. I wasn't able to connect with him on this past trip because obviously I had to deal with a heavy personal matter with the passing of my mom. But that's a little bit of the story background behind it. So with that said, okay, squirt gun, no squirt gun here. Maybe I could probably use one once in a while to cool off.
Well, I want to ask maybe change gears a little bit. Because Joe, you showed the Atari. You had the Atari. Do you guys remember the Mattel Intellivision? We had the Intellivision.
Yes.
Which was like, I guess, Mattel's supposed competition for the Atari. So we had the cartridges. We had like football, baseball.
I personally did not have it, but a friend of mine did. I used to play on their game. I remember the controllers were terrible. It had this little disc on it. Like
that's right.
It had like this little disc, and you had to press that. That's the only complaint I had about.
That's exactly it. It didn't have a joystick. It had this little disc that you had to control everything on. And I remember playing that at home with my brother, and we had the sports games, and I don't remember what games, and they seemed so high tech at the time with their little like dots moving like the football field was like little dots moving along.
Well, they were all like that. I mean, even the Atari was just like a little bunch of blips. Although later on, they had a couple of games. Like my favorite Atari game had like this little separate pad, and it was like you went and like on like little space missions and targeted like other
space
ships
games. Yep.
So I mean, for the time, it was actually kind of a cool game. But yeah, the football games and stuff was like so basic. I mean, it wasn't much better than the it wasn't much better than the little games, the handheld ones. But yeah,
how did you find that so quickly?
see
That
that
was it.
little disc, that annoying.
Right, which I don't know why they thought that would be more fun than the actual joystick, but yeah, boy, you're really good at the pictures, aren't you? Yeah, and the space games. I remember the little space games.
Well, it's funny. Me being a football guy like I am, I enjoyed that handheld one. Plus it was good when you're on an airplane. You
Yeah.
can play with it too. I mean, nowadays you can play with everything with your mobile phones or whatever. But back in the day, Toys R Us was a pretty big deal. And you talk about
Oh
some of
yeah.
the stores back then. Now you can buy this stuff all day long online, wherever you're going to buy this stuff. But back then, those little football games we're talking about, guys, didn't they run like $20-$30? Some at least
Each cartridge was each cartridge was, I think, so they could have went as high as 50, which you think about $50,
yeah.
That's a lot of money. Well, I don't know if you had it in Michigan, but Joe, do you remember Play World? Did you guys have Play World in Michigan?
Lionel Play World.
Lionel Play World. That was like the place. That's the place where I would like
when I
love
was
to
a
go.
kid, there was no Toys R Us. It was Lionel. Right. It was Lionel Play. Oh, it may have been Lionel Play World, I think.
I think that's what Lionel Play World. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we went.
Yeah, we had
us too. That's where we went too.
Yeah, big play. So, but yeah, no, I used to love that little football game. Now all I do is mess around with athletes in college and pro.
Well, like you said, Scott, you got every on your phone. You can have any pretty much game you want now, and so.
Oh, and not even that. Like for Hanukkah, I bought my son one of those Oculus virtual reality goggles.
Oh, well, there you go. Right.
Like the two games I got, one of them was for him and one of them was for my daughter. But one of them is a flight simulator. I mean, when you go into those games, you could literally look 360 degrees and see something. Like it's
amazing.
It's that it's like that, like three-dimensional and all around you. And then there's an escape room game, which is it's the same way. Like instead of like looking at just like a two-dimensional screen, you can actually look around you and see the room that's like all around you. And then they have like videos that you could nature video, all sorts of videos. It's pretty cool stuff.
That's really amazing. Cool. I mean, that's really
it's
cool.
amazing how far technology has come.
Yeah,
it really has.
As we stay in the game thing, you won't find me playing games on my phone. I'm too busy drumming up content for the show and every other thing called LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You get the drill. Yeah, as much as I'd like to play games, impossible. Mission Impossible. Once upon a time, there was a show called that.
Well, they didn't have any of that stuff in the 70s either, Scott. LinkedIn and Facebook and.
Oh, God. All right. Well, now that we've talked about Play World, now that we've gone ahead and talked about Toys R Us, and now that we've talked about an unexpected story that I never thought about, taking a pellet gun and parking it where the sun didn't shine in a very wide way, okay, now we're going to talk about something. Let me preface the fact that this situation occurred on my birthday. 2 weeks from tonight, I will turn 58 years of age. Now, for Ron.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Ron and Joe, nice South Floridian guys, you didn't have that thing called snow. You didn't have a lot of snow. But unless you...
We had flurries in 1977.
Tell you what, Joe,
yes, we did. And we also had fake snow. Don't forget the fake snow.
Oh, that's true. Oh, yeah.
You know, there's a place called Snowcat Ridge in Dade City that actually has snow tobogganing.
Did not
really?
Yes.
Did not know that. So
that's amazing. There you go.
So now that I've set the stage here, okay, for Johnny Lightning, and let's talk. Let's get ready to talk Johnny Lightning. If you're a big name driver, you connect yourself to some big stuff. So as I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, okay, Parnelli Jones was involved and Al Unser. For all you auto racing fans out there, these are pretty good guys in the motorsports industry. All right, here we go, guys. Living on Willowick on my birthday. Somehow, some way, I believe we did get this for Hanukkah. By the way, I got this Johnny Lightning train track set. Now, Johnny Lightning, okay, we talked about it being one of those trains that you just ride all the way around. You had the cars all over the place. So on my birthday, I had my cousin Robin babysitting us, okay? My brother Lonnie and I were just hanging out for birthday. Good stuff. my God, I knew it. Didn't know how
Here we
quick
go.
it would happen. Here we go. So we're playing around with this train set, cars, whatever. And my cousin Robin decides to go outside just to get the mail or doing something. So I shut the door and locked her out. Mind you, you're talking about young kids, okay, locking their babysitter out.
Naughty, 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 man.
I know. Mom and Dad.
How old were you?
I won't get disciplined from Mom over this one. Dad, who knows if he's listening anyways, if you are, so be it. If you aren't, doesn't matter. It's too late anyways. So Robin steps outside, probably get the mail and do what she's got to do. So I decided, younger brother over older brother. So younger brother generally goes out there and follows older brother. Of course, many years later, who knows if that's the case. I locked my cousin Robin outside.
In the snow.
Yeah, snow. It was cold, probably 20, 30 degrees. All I know is below freezing. So we have numerous different places that she can. She's knocking at the door, and she says, let me in. And I told my brother, no, we're leaving her outside. I'm having too much fun here. Mm. And anyways, we didn't let her for a while. We're down there in the basement or, the other level, the living level. I think it was the living room, but the way houses were back in Michigan, you could go not only upstairs, downstairs, middle, but then you also have a basement. But we didn't get to the basement because the house wasn't made out that way. So she tried to knock on the patio door, knock on one door, and I told my brother, we're not letting her in. I'm having a good time without her. So this time, my poor cousin Robin, okay, knocking relentlessly around. I wouldn't let her in. So as time went on, she started to get cold. Duh. Okay. Cold weather. So she's knocking around the door, finally gets a neighbor, and then the neighbor across the street goes out there and tries to get her a jacket. And after like 1 or 2 hours, I think I let her in. And boy, I'll tell you what, my brother and I, we didn't care. We were having a good old time, whatever. But I left her out there for a couple of hours, and one of the neighbors felt so bad for her that they had to get her a winter jacket to keep her from getting frostbite out there.
So did you get in trouble?
Couple hours.
Well, she was out there for a while. I can't remember how we maneuvered it. The only thing I can say about the story is she never babysat us again.
Oh,
Mom and Dad,
how mean.
Babysitter.
I'm sure she never wanted to be near you for a while.
That probably had a lot to do with it, too. I mean, think about it. On my birthday, when I was just a young pup, probably 10, 12 years old, I didn't know any better.
No, of course not.
Monica had a meeting. Back then, you had 8 days. You got 8 presents. I think that was one of the presents. And the amazing part about my brother and I, we're sitting in this room watching those cars go zoom, 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 zoom. And we're watching her run around run around the house, zoom, zoom, zoom. And we didn't let her in. And you know what? We didn't think anything of it. When you're young kids, what do you really think of anyways, right? You don't care. But she's knocking on every single door that you can knock on. And I just kept her outside. I didn't really care. It was my birthday. I was king of the hill. I could do whatever I want.
It's your birthday. They say you could do what you want on your birthday, right?
And she paid a cold price for it.
Crazy. Oh, look at that.
Look at this guy. Yeah, there you go. And that's what it looked like, too. That's what it looked like. There you got those cars going around the track. Nowadays my tracks are big-time raceways like Daytona, Indianapolis, Sebring, you name it, Phoenix, Miami, Homestead, just Michigan International Speedway. Am I leaving any out? Probably. But look at that. There you go. Joe Littman has that track set. You got all these cars whipping around each other, okay, doing that. And you have my brother and I locking my cousin outside, okay. And it was my idea. He doesn't get credit for this one. He's young. He didn't know any better. I was young. I knew better. And did it anyways. And didn't think much of it. Don't
That's
care.
Crazy.
I was so amazed, though. I got to give this neighbor credit that, once my cousin was freezing her tail off and my neighbor was trying so hard to get her a jacket, it became a point that at least she was able to stay somewhat warm until ultimately she got back in the house, and we didn't care what she had to say. It was just a lot of.
Wow. That is hilarious. You know, one thing I had to say, I never heard of Johnny Lightning Racetrack. I've
I
had
never did either.
Hot Wheels track, Matchbox tracks. I've had
Tyco.
Tyco tracks.
I
You know,
remember Tyco.
yeah,
I wonder if that was
with the little cars.
Johnny Lightning was more of a northern thing.
Well, it was a
Yeah.
normal thing. You're right, Joe. It really was. And you know, you're not worried about your cousin freezing her tail off out there when those things are whipping around the track.
Hey, you're having a good time.
And that's it too. You're having a good time. You're on your birthday, okay? And you're with your baby brother, like I was, and I'm the one who's initiating all this stuff, anyways. And he's just a little follower. He's innocent. He didn't know any better, but I did, and I didn't.
You didn't care though. It's your birthday, right?
To this day, you know what? I don't care, anyways.
I have a question. How did those work? Was it like with the ones I had? Was you like a little controller and you push it? How did that work?
Well, you have controllers, and you have some of these other ones that are battery powered as well. So you had a lot of different things too. You got battery powered ones. You just think those things whipping around the racetrack.
They just go and go, yeah.
And they go, and all of a sudden when they go on, and your cousin's out there freezing her backside off, all of a sudden you don't worry about how fast the cars are going. You just wonder how fast she's going to go out there and get some help. So
and you hear knock, knock, knock.
I'm telling you. And I'll tell you, the way that house in Southfield was, we had patio doors over there. We had regular doors. Of course, back then, we had a dog pen back there, but she couldn't get in that way, and she wouldn't want to face, I don't know if we had a dog back then or not, but she tried everything she could to get in that house, and I did everything to keep her out of there. And, when you're dealing with sub-0 degree temperatures, and it is cold.
It's crazy.
You got two young guys that don't need a babysitter. Let's just play Johnny Lightning. And, the amazing part about it is, don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of toys that I've really enjoyed over the years. I really have. Talk about the electronic games and that, but I haven't been able to find anything over the years that ever tops Johnny Lightning. Never.
I can understand. You have the whole story around it. You have the whole event.
I had the whole story around it, and I never thought, as I've gotten older, I would develop such an affinity for speed, whether I've covered it, taken ride-alongs, and you name it, talking to race cars, but yet sometimes your passions develop when you're just a young kid.
That's true. At a place like Playworld, I remember that sign.
But again, could I have gotten away with a stunt like this in Florida? Probably not, because it's too warm here. Can you get away with a stunt like that in Southfield, Michigan? Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't think it would have been a stunt down here, because down here, she wouldn't have been freezing outside. She would have been a little bit inconvenienced.
Right. It could have been a hot summer day, and but not 30 degrees when she's freezing and curling.
Yeah, don't forget the boots factor either. Okay, you got the boots out there, and I can remember many times where I would cover a Lions and Chicago Bears game over at Soldier Field. And why am I talking about that game compared to them? When you're dealing in the Great Lakes, which is where I'm from originally anyhow, not only are you dealing with cold weather, you're dealing with wind. Michigan is surrounded by the Great Lakes. But not only is she getting hammered with because of cold weather, there's a little bit of a wind situation, and there was some snow on the ground, and she's running and running and running and running and running.
I could imagine if it was 2020 and you had the technology, you probably would have had a phone out videoing her screaming, trying to knock on the door, and showed all your friends. I'm sure you would have.
Doesn't it make you wonder? Doesn't it make you wonder? Let your imagination run amok. I think of all those toys I could have had. And I'll be 58 years old 2 weeks from today. And Johnny Lightning stands out.
So do you have a Johnny Lightning set right now?
No. Wouldn't have the same impact anyways. Who knows?
I don't know. I mean, a few years back, I bought a Lionel train set for my son. And I mean, I had more fun putting it together and building the little. I made it like a Christmas village. I probably have a picture of it somewhere, but I had more fun putting that thing together and playing with it than he did.
Well, you seem like you're a mechanically inclined individual.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, back in the day when we're all building models, and when you go ahead and snap them together, or you have that glue on there. But I used to like doing that too. I enjoyed doing it.
Me too.
it kept your mind busy. Nowadays you got kids playing with Xboxes and all that stuff, and it's a different mindset when you're putting models together or jigsaw puzzles and all that. But back then, I don't know if I could handle Johnny Lightning, because nothing will ever top the story for what Johnny Lightning became what it was. And you guys are right. You can get away with a stunt like that here in the Southeast, you know, versus the impact that it had back then. I mean,
Sure.
well, I mean, I got bigger toys these days called professional and collegiate sports. That's as big a toy as you can get. But I'll tell you, when I talk about covering football games back even at Soldier Field, I can remember many times where I'd have to have 2 or 3 pairs of socks with some thermal underwear and try to stand on Lake Michigan and tell me how cold that gets. Oh, goodness. And yet, I'll bet to this day, my cousin Robin probably doesn't remember the story.
Well, I have a feeling
you haven't reminded her of this, like, periodically?
Well, no, not really. I think we've gotten older, so nowadays we focus on our medical problems instead of the good old days, because I can tell you right now, about you guys, I enjoyed growing up as a kid. I would find it hard to be a kid growing up in this day and age with everything that's going on. Back then, when we were growing up, I got to tell you, this is the soft side of me coming up, although it doesn't happen very often. When we grew up as a kid, it was just unbelievable. I really enjoyed growing up as a kid.
Well, I would bet if you ask your cousin, she's not going to remember the story the same exact way you do. She's going to think of when she almost froze, you know, when she almost froze in the snow in the middle of winter. That's what she's probably going to remember.
Yeah, she's probably not going to see it as fondly.
And fondly. It might not bring a smile to her face.
Well, I know.
What's that? Is that it?
That's the trade set I put together.
I know she won't.
Great job.
Fondly, but the odds of me bringing that story up to her these days is probably slim, because I really don't care. Because I think the one thing that's always consistent about when I talk about it is I always have the same reaction, that when you're a young kid, you're having fun, you're fearless, and you have an instant memory like that, where you know you're having a good time. Obviously, everything's inadvertent, but you don't know that as a kid. You have no fear or anything of what's going on back then. You do it, and you don't think anything of it. Would I ever bring it up to her later? Who knows? I don't know. It's something like maybe she'll see it on one of these broadcasts if she's paying attention to it anyways. Maybe I threw the teaser out there with Willowick Drive in Southfield, Michigan. Maybe somebody will get wind of it back then. Maybe somebody else will say, I don't know. But I do know it's a really neat story, especially as my birthday approaches, you know, that it's one of the most interesting memories that I've had with my younger brother and I. And we've talked about doing this show for a long time anyhow. It's just neat that we can go ahead and talk about it now. And, you know, unfortunately, my mother, I never talked to her about stuff like this. We were too busy talking about life, not stories about what it was like when you're like as a kid. Everybody has a different childhood and certain stories that they take out of the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I think the one thing that's always consistent about the Johnny Lightning thing is whether I'm with my in-laws up in Wisconsin or doing a broadcast with you guys or wherever, it always comes out the same. I can't stop laughing about the whole thing. I really can't. I remember the whole context for which it happened. You know, I even on this last trip back home, my wife and I go out there and took the same exact route that I took when I got my driver's license on a snowy day, and then talked the lady at the Secretary of State to take an easy route for me, because I told her, if you don't, we're going to get killed. And I guess she didn't quite like the alternative, so I ended up going ahead and taking the alternative. I got my license. Everybody was happy. And I was so happy that day I ran a red light. My father didn't mind letting me know about it, but didn't know where it was. And I don't mind recreating that route, because I can always say right now that for everybody that would ever remind me of that red light I ran, I didn't get a $180 speed ticket going up the Florida Turnpike en route to a wedding. Do I care about that? No. But we all have different things. But when I talk about comparing speed, and that's why I'm bringing these stories up simultaneously with the speed that you have to deal with when you're on the road. Because you have, what I found about South Florida, I don't know about you guys, because you've been here longer than me, you've got to be a bit more aggressive in some ways, because you get cut off on a moment's notice. And people haven't, and the thing called turn signal is like a foreign language to people, you know, and if you're lucky to get somebody nice enough to let you in, that's great. It is what it is, whether you're on a Johnny Lightning track, whether you're on covering an auto racing event, whether you're on an interstate, whatever, but that story always comes out the same way, and I lose it every single time that I talk about it.
It's a funny story. I mean, and it's good how you can just recall it in an instant. A whole entire story,
Well, do you guys notice that?
just like Joe can recall the Matchbox that he
I,
played with us
you
too.
know,
And by
that's
the way,
the only,
Joe, that looks really nice.
oh, thank you. That's not a current, that train set's been in my garage, unfortunately, since we moved into our new house because we have no place to put it, but
Uh,
it looked good while we had it out.
Well, I mean, you guys probably noticed over the years that there's certain stories in your lifetime that there's got to be one that stands out. Okay, we're talking. The focus tonight is toys. Johnny Lightning, you guys have your best. Joe's had his. Ron's had his, and we know a lot of youngsters nowadays have their own toys and all that business. But but stories are. You always have that one story that stands out over the years. And I know we have a lot of stories amongst the three of us. Duh. But this is the time of the year where, when I Play World, Toys R Us, holy moly. Welcome to Walmart, guys, where you get a fraction of what you have. Who would have thought about Amazon, eBay, you name it?
Yeah, I mean, it is sad. I mean, I feel bad for kids these days. They can't really go into a store like we did and go, I mean, I suppose Walmart, some of them have a pretty big toy selection, but it's not the same as going into a big Toys R Us or a Play World or something like that.
That's true, because isn't part of the fun just looking, when you're a kid, just looking at the shelves and trying different things and then hoping you'll get stuff or making it, hope I get this for my birthday or whatever. And, it's one thing to, like you said, like, you could order anything on Amazon, but it's the kind of the hands-on thing. You look at a picture and, and you hope you like it when you get it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. It is kind of weird how things have really evolved and changed. But just being able to play with a train set and all the different things, try it. If I like it, you pay cash, credit card, check, whatever the case may be. But this story about Johnny Lightning has always stood the test in time for me. That I always laugh hard about it, because I realize that even though my cousin was in a little bit of a jackpot because I made sure that my younger brother was a follower going along with it. Little did he know. It's fun. And I'm glad that nothing did fatally happen to her and that she
good thing.
A neighbor that did cough up a jacket to save her a little bit. And luckily it was just a few hours instead of many, many hours. Or I don't know what the discipline would have been, and I'll never know, and I don't really frankly care anyways. But that's my story, folks. Johnny Lightning, the story is strong in my mind, and I'll tell you, it's something that I'll always enjoy talking about when I have a tentative audience willing to listen.
Well, guys, it's been fun because you kind of like Joe said, it's weird how you don't think of something, and then when you get a picture or you think about it, it's like, oh yeah, I did this, I had that. Especially the toys when you were like smaller, like elementary school age. It's like, wow. It's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, some of the things I remember, but some of them until I actually saw the picture of it, like just, when I Googled 70s toys, and then I saw ones like exactly like the ones I had, that's it. I had that exact thing, and it brought back like a rush of like total recall about that particular toy, and then all of a sudden it started the chain of events. Like when I'm thinking of other toys, like, oh yeah, I remember that one. So I Googled, Jaguar E-Type, remote control car, and then bam, there's the car. There's the car I used to play with as a kid.
Yeah, I remember those cars. I remember that was. It's amazing how because I didn't even think about remote control cars, but I had a bunch of them. I loved those when I was little and didn't think about it until you brought up yours. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
No, I mean, there's some other ones I didn't talk about. But G.I. Joe, you guys have G.I. Joe toys?
Yep. Certainly did. And all the accessories that you could buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You talk about some of the broadcasts that we talked about putting together, talk about a trip down memory lane. My goodness. This is it. This to me is the epitome of memory lane. Really. Johnny Lightning.
Definitely. The memory lane, you remember, and it just comes back to you and all the scenes you created, in your mind when you were playing.
If I tried to take a picture of the back of that house, I'd have been thrown in jail back home. So I was just happy just to take the front of the house where it all happened.
Well, since you don't live there anymore, that's called trespassing. That's Joe.
He was only on the driveway.
That's true.
Yeah, no, right. If you went in the back, yeah.
You know, the funny thing is I was talking to my sister a while back, and we're only about half an hour away from the house that we both grew up in, and then the house that she was first in before I was born is only about 5 minutes away from that house. So every once in a while, like she's in her friends' parents still live in the house where in the old neighborhood she used to grow up in. So every once in a while she's there and she passes by her house that she grew up in. And I think the last time she saw the people that own the house and they were going to let her inside because she's dying to go in there and see what it looks like now.
Yeah.
And
I
think they would let her do it, but it's funny. Like up until about 3 years ago, my mom still owned the house that I grew up in. And
really recently.
Wow.
She only sold it a few years ago, and my kids, I would take them over to what was my old room, and I go into my closet, and it still had crayon markings from when I was 2 years old, and wrote on the wall that they never covered up because it was in the closet. Like, yeah, when I was 2 years old, that was me.
Yeah.
How did your kids react? Were they interested or no? Or yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they have as much of appreciation from that type of nostalgia than I do.
On the day that I went by that house, and there are times that I've gone by it, nobody's been in the driveway, and the neighborhood has changed considerably. So I don't think it would probably be a move that would be greeted too kindly to do it. So I was thankful just to get the photos of the front of the house, knowing that you paint pictures that you do, but don't think in a million years that I wouldn't like to go back in that one basement area with that patio door, taking a picture and making it more visual than what I was able to provide online today, for sure.
Yeah, well, maybe one day it'll go on Airbnb and you could like recreate it. You know, you can bring your cousin over and lock her outside in the wintertime while you're in the basement playing.
Oh, I don't think I'm enough to do that. No, that's okay. I'm with you, Joe. I think it'd be a great idea. I'm just glad that we're able to bring.
You don't even have to tell her what's going on. You can just say, "Hey, come over. You know, we're getting together at the old house." And then when she gets there, knocking on the door, you just don't let her in.
Well, I can only imagine how that would turn out. Oh my goodness!
You have to make sure it's 30 degrees out.
I would be hard pressed to see if I ever bring. You know, you never know. Maybe down the road, if I ever get her in a lighthearted moment, that I would talk about this show. But I don't know. We're going to leave that out there. If I ever do come up with that moment where it does happen, I'll keep you and everybody out there watching and listening to the broadcast attuned to this. But right now, we're not really worried about that, okay? To me, on one cold birthday in metropolitan Detroit, Johnny Lightning stood tall. My brother and I were watching, and my cousin was dealing with the old cold weather. Go figure. But what a great broadcast tonight to try to bring something to light. Again, I can't reiterate enough. I've had a lot of toys over the years that I've really enjoyed, but to me, Johnny Lightning is number one in my books. You know, above the pellet gun. I don't care about the pellet gun. That was a different situation. But Johnny Lightning to me, probably maybe to some extent, gave me a little affinity for speed because back then I used to like to watch NASCAR and IndyCar over the years. And I got into motorsports, again, being from the Midwest, you do that, you know, where you have a lot of stuff going on, Michigan, International Speedway, Indianapolis, you name it. So to have a racetrack associated in the Midwest where these automobiles are actually out there being created, there's a little speed synergy going there as well. So what a great broadcast tonight. And again,
it's been fun.
Right near my birthday a couple weeks ago. And as I said before, no matter who I tell this story to, I will always lose it. I guarantee it. And here I am with my two pals talking about it tonight. So, All right. Well, with that said, okay, Ron Renzy, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Of course. And my day job, you can get me. My firm is Wahlberg and Renzy. You can reach us by phone at 954-757-1212 or look us up send us an email at info@Wahlberg, WALLBERG -Renzy, RENZY.com, or look us up on social media. And I can't help but laugh at the Johnny Lightning sign.
And thanks too. You got to keep that on until the end of the broadcast, Joe.
Well,
All right.
and I'm what?
That's unbelievable. Coming up, but that puts a stamp on this broadcast with Johnny Lightning. Go ahead.
I'm Joe Littman of the Nora Law Group. We are a property damage law firm located in Coral Springs. We handle insurance claims litigation against your insurance company if they deny, underpay, or delay your insurance claim, and we get your property restored back to the condition it was before you had any property damage. So if you have any property that's been damaged and needs repair and your insurance company is not cooperating with you, give us a call. Our number is 954-749-3151.
Very good. Okay, my name is Scott Morgenroth, Motor City Madmouth. Glad to have you on the South Florida Tribune podcast. I do this with Ron Renzy, Joe Littman, two guys who I really enjoy having as co-hosts. Three of us have gotten to know each other real well. I've known Ron a little bit longer. So the Coral Springs Chamber of Commerce over at in our Wednesday referral group. Great group. And I got to tell you, I'm really proud to be a part of this group because when my mom passed away, I got a lot of people that reached out to me during a very difficult time. But long before that happened, they've certainly been a great. I've enjoyed being with this group as well as the Coral Springs Chamber, and we'll be there until I can't breathe anymore. All right. As far as following us here on social media, on Twitter, you can follow us at Tribune South. That's at Tribune South. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune. We have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that, South Florida Tribune. No cost except a little bit of effort. Hit the subscribe button. There you go. Then you can see the visual version of all the broadcasts that we carry. Our website's www.southfloridatribune.com. We have a broadcast drop-down. You can see all of our shows on there as well, the video, the audio, whatever. Just go to the drop-down that says broadcast, southfloridatribune.com. On the South Florida Tribune website as well, we have our media distribution partners on there. We have columnists, a Motor City Monitor. We have pretty much anything for anybody that is interested in not only sports but news. And one of our top priorities, and we've begun to do that in 2020, but we'll be doing more of it in 2021, is having a lot more non-sports related contests because we want everybody to be able to benefit by not only what we do on the air, but off the air as well. So again, go to www.southfloridatribune.com. My wife, Candy Evelyn Morgenroth, does a phenomenal job keeping this site together, posts a lot of the different things on there from broadcasts and stories, and I'm so proud that Candy's a part of this operation. Without her, it would make my job daunting for sure. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can contact me on LinkedIn, Scott Morgenroth. If you want to hear the audio version of this broadcast, you can do so through the following: Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. So wherever you get your podcast, look for the South Florida Tribune, as well as our other shows, the Sports Exchange, No Limits, just to name a few. So, we have a lot of different broadcasts on there. And one of the things we'll be planning on doing next year as we go into 2021 is I'm looking forward to streaming these broadcasts a little bit more, but that's something that's not in the works down the road. But again, you guys are great co-hosts, and I'm glad we have an opportunity to add a little bit of humor at a time like this when we definitely need it. I'll go out there and talk about the COVID message for everybody. Go out there and mask up. Be safe out there. Do social distancing. You guys want to add to the COVID?
No, just wear your mask, social distance. Agree 100%.
It wasn't easy for me being on the road, having to do it in Metro Detroit, but I've become battle tested with this whole thing. Just do the right thing, folks. We know that a vaccine is on the horizon at some point, but don't take that for granted. Too many people are passing away. Too many hospitals are filled up. Don't take COVID-19 lightly. If you do, you'll pay the price for it. But been a really fun broadcast talking about Johnny Lightning, and I hope that you guys enjoy listening and watching to this broadcast and the stories that Ron and Joe have shared as well. Because again, our goal here is to make sure that while things are stressful for you, that we can provide a laugh or two, a little information, and a trip down memory lane. And I think that's our responsibility here, is to entertain you first and foremost. So Johnny Lightning, you're definitely remembered. And in the nice cold weather, again, I wouldn't get along with it. I wouldn't get away with it in South Florida, but we didn't do it in South Florida. So guess what? It doesn't matter. So on behalf of Joe Littman and Ron Renzy, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the South Florida Tribune podcast. And until the next time, take care, everybody. And you can follow Ron Renzy's Hot Wheels and deal with me when I get behind a real wheel, okay? And Joe Littman, wherever he decides to go, he's my technical authority. Good stuff. Have a great broadcast. God bless and happy holidays to you until we do the next edition of the South Florida Tribune podcast. Good night, everybody. Be safe. And once again, happy holidays and a healthy new year. Goodbye, everybody.